What is going on, guys? I am Optimus Philip, and the first two episodes of Percy Jackson Season 2 have been out for a few days now, and I think it's about time I finally talked about them. I was hoping to get this video out a little sooner, but between me taking notes for the upcoming Sins video, doing my actual real life job, and getting over a cold, I haven't had as much time to work on this as I would like. But I'm doing it now, so let's just go through some rapid fire thoughts. So the first episode began with a sequence of Grover doing a sort of Indiana Jones thing, looking through the jungle, trying to find clues to where Pan is, and honestly, I did really like it. It's not from the book, but it was really fun to watch, especially when he picks up those reed pipes, plays them, and it actually makes stuff happen. That was something out of the books that they didn't go into in season 1, but it is cool to see now. During this sequence, he is approached by a new character, Allison Sims, who is a member of Luke's rebellion. I kinda have mixed feelings about this character. Now, she hasn't done a whole lot yet, so it's too early to make any actual judgments, but we know from interviews that she is going to be important for the rest of the series, which does give me some concern considering that she is entirely made up for the show and has no basis in the books. So, the way I see it, there are two very easy pitfalls she could end up going into, which is either not contributing anything at all and making me question why they included her in the first place, or she could become a complete plot tumor and take time away from actually developing the real plot of the books, which is what we're here for. So yeah, that is something that I'm a little worried about, but we have to wait and see before I can make any actual judgments. I also found the ending of this sequence to be a little weird. Apparently, in this version, Polyphemus leaves threads of the Golden Fleece in places to lure satyrs out, and then he sends a sea monster, like this big tentacled sea monster, to grab the satyrs and drag them to his lair. That's a little more involved than how it worked in the book, where, satyrs just went to where he was keeping the fleece, and he was like, oh, satyr, no. Okay, that's a bit of a simplification, but I think you get the idea. So yeah, I did find that a little weird. Again, it's early, so they're probably gonna flesh this out more as it progresses, and we'll get to, see more of what this monster actually is and how Polyphemus controls it. But for now, it's just a bizarre thing they added. They do address the cell phone thing, which I was glad to see. For those who might have forgotten, back in Season 1, the idea of using a cell phone is dismissed because of Annabeth's pride. In this episode, they do confirm that just like in the books, cell phones do attract monsters, so yeah, I am glad to see that. They are still bringing things in from the books, so that is nice to see. But then they follow it up by introducing Tyson in what is probably the worst way possible. So, in this show, Tyson lives with the Jacksons. He's already building stuff despite not having met Beckendorf or any of the other Hephaestus kids yet. And Percy just knows he's a Cyclops from the get-go. Which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because in the book, Percy has this whole arc of coming to terms with the fact that Tyson was not only part of his world this entire time, but was also a monster. But now we can't do that arc because Percy knows from the beginning, and now we need to give him a new arc, which, in my opinion, is nowhere near as good. So, I do really wish they had stuck to the books and not done any of this weird new stuff. They also cut out the part where Percy and Tyson go to the last day of school, so we miss out on seeing the bullies, we miss out on all the little jokes they throw in, and also, we miss out on seeing the actual, dodgeball game with the Lystragonians. Instead, Annabeth stops Percy and Tyson while they're on their way to school, and she brings them to camp straight from there, so we completely skip over all the school stuff. Which is kind of a shame because not only did that scene have some good jokes, but it also added a lot to the characters, in my opinion. We got to see how Percy and Tyson were viewed by their peers in the mortal world, especially the ableism that Tyson faced, and we got to see how that affected them. Here, there are some scenes of them being laughed at school in a montage, but that's about it. You don't really get a deep look at it. So, yeah, I wish we'd gotten more of the school scene, especially since we miss out on the dodgeball scene, which is an entire action sequence that gets cut out completely. which really does not make any sense. I don't know why this show keeps shying away from the action elements of the book. Like, the budget, I'm pretty sure, is on par with Stranger Things and Game of Thrones. They should be able to show a lot more, but they don't, which just makes it feel cheap. The Grey Sister scene was alright, it's pretty much straight out of the book. They make some minor tweaks, but nothing egregious. I enjoyed it. But then we actually get to camp, and my suspicions were confirmed. They cut the Colchis Bulls out completely and had the Lystrigonians attacking camp instead. Again, really makes the show feel cheap that you cut an entire monster from the show and just replace them with something infinitely cheaper. And on that same note, anyone who saw my video on the leaked clips from earlier this year might remember that I was glad to see that the trident over Tyson's head was actually spinning like it's supposed to in the book. Yeah, that didn't make it into the final product. For some reason, despite them having that animation in the previs, this season does the exact same floating PNG effect from the first season when Percy got claimed. It's just... it looks just as ridiculous here as it did back then. I don't know why they cut the spinning. Maybe they wanted to make it more consistent, but I was really looking forward to seeing the effects actually evolve, so yeah, that was kind of disappointing. They do try to make Tyson's claiming affect Percy in some way. They set it up to where it looks like Tyson knew all along that Poseidon was his father and kept it from Percy for some reason, and Percy gets mad at him over that. But it feels a little hollow considering they've already been living together for months at this point, so you'd think that this wouldn't really change anything about their actual relationship, so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for this to be some kind of sore spot. It feels weird, it feels like they're trying to force it, but I guess it's over quickly enough and they make up, and I do like that they do have conversations about their feelings. That is something that I appreciate from the book, which is that they actually talk about these things instead of letting them fester and come to a head. I will say that was a nice change of pace, and I'm glad to see them carry that over into the show. Not that the show was lacking in other forced drama, but again, we'll get to that. The empathy link is handled completely differently. In the book, they handled the empathy link almost completely differently from how they do in the book. In the show, Grover is excited that he was able to form an empathy link with Grover because, it means that they're really best friends. In the book, he seems kind of guilty about it because in doing it, he ended up binding his soul to Percy's in such a way that if one of them died, it would most likely kill the other one too, or at least leave them in a vegetative state for the rest of their life. So yeah, still not good either way. It was basically a last-ditch, desperate effort to get his distress call out, so it is a little weird seeing them play it almost completely differently. Tantalus I was actually pretty excited about because the actor who plays him, Timothy Simons, is actually from Maine, just like I am, which is always cool to see. But I feel like they kinda did him dirty here. I mean, first of all, he's not wearing his orange jumpsuit. They have it hanging in his closet, which is a nice touch, but in the actual show, he wears like these black robes, which kinda make him feel a little edgelord, but whatever. The big thing that bugs me is that they don't show the food curse the way it worked in the books. In the book, he would reach out to try and grab food or drink, and it would actively move away from him. Here, they don't do that. Like, he just looks at a bucket of popcorn hungrily, but he doesn't reach out to do anything with it. And later, he's seen grabbing a cup of water and trying to drink out of a straw. But instead of, the cup sliding away from him or the water spilling out or something creative or fun like that, it just doesn't move at all. He just sucks on the straw and nothing comes up. It's kind of lame. Again, it makes it feel a little cheap. Really wish they would put more into the effects. Hopefully they're building up to something big later on. I can only hope. But yeah, as it is a little disappointing. And then we get into like the really forced drama between Percy and Annabeth. So at one point, Annabeth makes an iris message and talks to Chiron about going on the quest to get the Golden Fleece. And Chiron says that Annabeth should go on the quest, but not Percy, and that Percy shouldn't know that he's not supposed to go on the quest because of the whole Great Prophecy and Kronos setting a trap. So Annabeth has to lie to Percy about what she's trying to do, and it just feels really, really dumb. It's basically the same thing they did last season with Grover having to hide that Sally is still alive. They're just retreading old ground, and it feels just as forced here. In the book, Percy and Annabeth had a falling out over Tyson because Annabeth has a deep-seated hatred for Cyclopes, while Percy cares deeply about Tyson in spite of everything, and that leads to a rift forming in their friendship, and they eventually need to make up, and that was the conflict in the book. Here, they seem to be downplaying the Cyclops hatred, at least at first. It's still there, it's just more subtle now, which I do appreciate. The show is developing a good sense of subtlety in this season, and just in general, the directing, the chemistry between the actors is a lot better. I do believe these relationships a lot more now than I did back in season 1, which I will give it that. But yeah, they're kind of downplaying that aspect of the conflict, at least for now, and instead adding a bunch of other stuff on top of it, which does make it feel like they're trying a lot more than they need to build up drama between these characters. Like, there's a good foundation in the books, you just need to work with that. So Chris Rodriguez has a bit of an expanded role in this, which I actually really appreciate. I feel like it's going to go a long way to making him feel more fleshed out when his storyline does eventually come to a head later on. I especially like that they're giving him so much to do with Clarice, considering that they do end up dating later on. That was one part of the books that I did feel was a little rushed, a little forced, so I'm glad that they're building that up now so that it actually feels more earned later. I approve of this. I also really like the chariot race. It had a lot going on, a lot of fun action. There was one part that felt a little weird, which was that Clarice at one point hits the Hephaestus chariot and causes it to break down, and they spend a lot of time building up to the fact that it's going to explode and they need to do something about it, get it away from the stands, away from the other chariots. And then when it does blow up, it's just there in the background. It doesn't affect the race at all, which just feels like a total cop-out. I felt like they were building to something that never actually happened, which felt a little silly. I also feel like the Stymphalian birds were handled pretty well. There are some slight tweaks from how it is in the books, but ultimately it plays out mostly the same, so I'm okay with that. But what I found really weird was that the scene after this, where Tantalus gives Clarice the quest, it plays out almost exactly like the scene from the movie. Like, Tantalus tries to take credit for Annabeth and Percy's idea, and then he chooses Clarice, and everyone applauds. It's the exact same scene as... Okay, not exactly the same, but it plays out so similarly that I just was amazed. Like, for all that Rick has complained about the movies since they came out, and reasonably so, let me be clear, there are several moments in this show that play out eerily similar to the movie, even when it doesn't really make sense. Like, I don't get why they just do pretty much the exact same thing as the movie instead of, the books, which I thought was a lot more interesting. It feels a little hypocritical, to be totally honest. They did show Grover with the wedding dress, which was honestly pretty funny. It's even funnier here because the way the empathy link works is that sometimes Grover and Percy end up swapping clothes in the middle of a scene. So we also get to see Percy in the wedding dress, which I thought that was really funny. And then after that, they did the scene on the beach with Hermes, which was alright. I'd hoped for something a little more book accurate with George and Martha showing up and Hermes casually bragging about inventing the internet. But overall, the scene does play out similar to the books, with a few jokes thrown in. I will say that so far this season, there have been 2 sex jokes in as many episodes. Dionysus in episode 1 jokes that Poseidon could never keep his trident to himself after Tyson was claimed. And then in episode 2, Percy makes a "what happens in Vegas" comment, and Hermes responds that what happens in Vegas is the reason for 50% of the kids in Hermes' cabin. I'll be honest, it is kind of funny, but at the same time, I feel like it's a little more edgy than what the books were going for, at least at this point. I don't know. I guess it's fine. It's just a little beyond what I was expecting. One last thing that did kind of bug me was that instead of the trio riding off on a hippocampi at the end, Hermes just gives them a boat, like a little inflatable raft. It's rainbow colored, which was a nice reference, I guess, but I really wanted to see the hippocampi, and the fact that we don't, again, just feels cheap. So that was the first 2 episodes of season 2. I guess there were a few things that I did like, but at the same time, there's still a lot of weird stuff going on that I really did not care for. I still wish they had stuck closer to the books, and I feel like they're still doing a lot of things wrong that I would like to see improved on. Now, before I leave you all today, I would like everyone to pull up their bingo cards because for those who missed my community posts, I put together a little bingo game of changes that I predicted they might or might not make to this season. Some fairly minor to some really out there. If you don't already have a bingo card, I'll put a link in the description to where you can generate one. Remember to save the URL like as a bookmark or something so that you can keep up as the season continues. And if anyone does get a bingo that is a 5 in a row in any direction, including diagonal, be sure to post it in my Discord server because I will be giving shoutouts to anyone who does get bingo in these impressions videos. For this week, please mark if you have no Colchis Bulls, no Beckendorf. There is a guy on the Hephaestus Cherry who does kind of match Beckendorf's description from the book, but he is not named in the captions or in the credits, so I'm not counting it. No Selena, because she does not appear at all. Chiron's parentage is known from the start. No Stoll Brothers. The Empathy Link is not lethal. And no Lava Kitchen. So those are the squares we're marking off this week. 7 in total out of the 30 that I made, not counting the free space. So it's possible, but not likely, that we may have a bingo already. And if you do, please post in the Discord server, and I'll give you a shout out in the next one. But until then, I'm Optimus Philip, rolling out.